Hello and welcome to What's Your Geek, where I talk about what I'm passionate about, what you're passionate about, and what's more obsessive than cataloging over 4,000 pre-painted plastic miniatures in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm starting today's show off with something a little different. When I first discovered D&D, there weren't pre-painted plastic miniatures didn't exist, and it was uphill to school both ways. Chaos, utter chaos. That's the name of today's show, and it's already happened. So what I'm going to do is showing off some miniatures. When I was a kid and playing Dungeons and Dragons, I had these like Ral Partha. They were like little metal, maybe even lead figurines, miniatures, but they were just kind of like a whitish gray color. And I always longed to paint them, but never took any steps to do it. A few years ago at a local convention called Dragonflight, I actually painted my very first miniature, a dwarf. Dwarves are my favorite fantasy race, and I think he turned out okay, particularly considered it was my very first attempt. You know, got some stuff on the shield there. But then this year, I went to a convention called OrcaCon up in Everett, and the guy who was doing the miniature painting instruction basically was watching like some sports stuff. So my next miniature was this one, and as you can see, I don't know. I got a lot of flack for this. I was really excited because it's kind of like, you know, having an ugly baby. It's like, you know, you love it regardless. You don't see the flaws. And I actually had made a character for this D&D game I was in just for this miniature. And the first thing that happened when I laid this thing on the table was everyone just gave me a round of flack. It was kind of hilarious and disheartening. Now, skip forward a couple months, no more practice, but I go to a place called Meeple's Games in West Seattle, and the guy there was super awesome and really helped me, give me some tutorials, and I painted these two miniatures, right? And I'm actually having a game. I'm like a one-off 4E game based on Amethyst. I'm going to use these for. I just need to paint a few more, but you can see, I think, just night and day, right? Much, much better. I've got two, so I'm trying to hold them both, but the eyes are really hard to paint. This guy, I think I did, it's kind of hard to see with my camera, but I tried to just do some sort of a, like he was wearing sunglasses. And this guy, the actual painter guy, kind of helped me. But again, it looks like this just looks like white. Anyway, just wanted to show that off. I am finally, after years and years, exploring my miniature painting interest and hobby. And since I've got like a ton of these Bones Reaper miniatures from a Kickstarter, you can see just plain white. That's what these guys were. These guys were just plain white. Well, you know, now I've got a lot to work with. All right, Geekdom, the frontier of the imagination. These are the voyages of Robert Dorgan, his 2-year mission to explore 90 different shells of original D&D miniatures, to seek out lore and tangential information, to obsessively go where geeks live in their passions and obsessions. I have 9 cases with 10 shelves each, a 2-year journey to go into geekdom. My current count is 4,007 miniatures, 1,330 unique miniatures. Coming up, it's going to be chaos, utter chaos. My 5th shelf has a few different miniatures, and I'm going to be focusing on the Slaads. Back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back to What's Your Geek. And you might say, wait a minute, those don't look like the pre-painted plastic miniatures you've been talking about. And you'd be right, because guess what? It's chaos. I just had to show off these miniatures from my backing of the Cthulhu Wars Kickstarter. These aren't even part of the regular game. These are extras I bagged. All of these dudes, these Cthulhuan horrors, glow in the dark, right? It's pretty cool. I actually took this guy and into a closet and was taking pictures of him, which sounds just very odd. But anyway, yeah, pretty cool. If you want to check it out, Cthulhu Wars, it is a game that has many, many additions, and I am looking forward to playing it soon. So case 1 represents some of my odder, more interesting creatures. You can see this case doesn't look quite full. There's some blank spaces in there, like right here, here, and here. And that's because some of the miniatures that were on here already jumped out. And some of those are the Slaad, or the Slaadi for plural. This is a Slaad here, still on there. This is another Slaad still on the case. But the rest of them have gone AWOL, but don't worry, I will be helping to track them down as the episode progresses. So, The Slaad were created by a man by the name of Charles Strauss, or Strauss. I don't know how to pronounce it. Here is a quote he said of his creation. Well, the fact that I was running a fever when I came up with a Slaadi is probably not going to surprise anyone. Think of them as my independent exploration of Lovecraftiana, or basically Lovecraft. I didn't discover H.P. Lovecraft until a couple of years later. Think Lovecraft mythos as invented by someone who hasn't read Lovecraft or heard of him. The Slaadi are going to be basically representatives of and devotees or devotees of total chaos with an added warped sense of humor. Now, the original Slaadi had a really more pronounced frog-like appearance, and so there was a lot of humor and poking fun at them. And by the time I got to the Planescape D&D setting, they kind of tried to remorph that and make it a little bit more scary and not so froggy and bulbous. And then in 3rd edition, when they also kept that same sort of a feel. Planescape is a setting for Dungeons and Dragons that kind of was unlike any other setting that I can think of. It took place sort of in this city of Sigil, which was sort of this inner place, kind of like a giant cosmic city where you could sort of go to other planes and things like that. But this episode is not about Sigil or Planescape, it's about the Slaad. So let's get on to it. So I am going to, in a chaotic manner, as I pulled off the miniatures from the plate, I just going to talk about them. This first guy, whoa, he's jumping away. This first guy is called a blue Slaad. And you're like, oh, well, blue, yeah. Hey, pretty obvious. Now in third edition, or 3.5, he was a challenge rating 8. So about basically like you're looking at 8th level characters, 4 8th level characters, a decent, challenge for, right? And he could infect victims with a disease that could turn them into a red Slaad or a green Slaad if they were an arcane caster, like a magic user or a sorcerer, things like that, right? And now in 5th edition, they made him a CR7. So they basically tweaked him a little bit, made him a little bit weaker, I mean, based on challenge rating levels, but basically kind of the same. But what I don't like about 5th edition is reading the stats, the 5th edition blue Slaad is just basically a little stronger version of the red Slaad. And except for the fact that he does the disease, the red Slaad is a different feature. Now in 4th edition, he's level 17. And here's the thing about that. Chaos. Did I not tell you this is utter chaos? You see, my phone is ringing right now. And that is chaos. Okay, hey, totally crazy. Had a phone call, if you can believe it. Anyway, so the blue Slaad in 4th edition was level 17. They also decided they needed to give them an additional moniker or a name, and they called the blue Slaad the Talon Slaad, and that is the 4th edition version. You can see pretty similar to the 3rd edition one. I kind of like the 3rd edition one better just because he's a little bit, I don't know. Well, I don't know. This guy's kind of weird too. You know what? They both got their yeah. I like them both. Heck, what the heck? I can't decide. Like them both. Cool, cool, cool. I mean, I guess. Well, I guess the yeah. You know what? I do like the paint job on this guy better, on this 4th edition one. I do like it. It's a little bit more very different color. This guy's just all sort of like the same sort of color. All right, that's the blue Slaad. And they were basically like one step up from the red Slaad, who are basically just like the dumb foot soldiers. Blue Slaad, a little more intelligent, could actually work together. Next up, we have the gray Slaad, which is this dude. This guy looks almost like he's got some kind of a webbed wings. Now, the gray Slaad in 3rd edition was a challenge rating 10, and they like to use spells. And they came from green Slaads who had lasted over a century. They could undergo a mysterious ritual and turn into gray Slaads. Now in 5th edition, they also reduced the CR by 1, and they made the gray Slaads challenge rating 9. But they do have spells, like in 3rd edition, like fireballs. They also gave them great swords. They were masters of a great sword. I don't know why. Also, in 5th edition, they said, according to the lore, outside of their home state of Limbo, they carried out missions for their Death Slaad masters. So I don't quite like that as much. I just feel like we'll talk about the Death Slaad in a moment here, but I feel like the gray Slaads, I feel like they could be outside doing other stuff, right? And also, I also feel like the mystery in 5th edition was a little bit worn off from that. But that's the gray Slaad. And I'm not doing the stat cards anymore. I figure like the stat cards probably don't mean a lot to many people and don't add a lot to it. Now in 4th edition, the gray slots were level 13, which my math is basically I divide by 1.5 because 3rd edition, 4th, and 5th edition is kind of based on a 1 to 20 level, right? You can theoretically you could go past that, but that's kind of what it's based on. And 4th edition was based on 1 to 30, so I'm just trying to equivocate that. So in 4th edition, the gray slots were about a CR 8.5, which is actually a little bit weaker than 30.5 and 5th edition. They're also called rift slots. I have no idea why. Now next, we have, this is actually called a black Slaad, right there. And this is called the death Slaad. And the reason I'm sort of showing them at the same time is I really feel like this black Slaad is a 4th edition, or void Slaad as they like to call it as well. And this death Slaad is 3rd edition and 5th edition Slaad. But I think they're kind of the same thing because they don't have a black death Slaad in 4th edition. And for some reason, I think they had to make them all colors. I'm not sure why. So in 3rd edition, the death Slaad is a challenge rating 13. So we're getting into the we're getting some high level challenges there. And basically in 3rd edition, the Slaads were all chaotic neutral. They just represented the pure energies of chaos. But if they were infected by the abyss, by the negative plane, right, then they became death Slaads, and they became chaotic evil, which I think is a pretty cool story element. So the death Slaads represent the corruption of chaos by evil. They could command other Slaads basically through just like the other Slaads were afraid of them. And there was a mysterious ritual that turned gray Slaads into death Slaads in the 3rd edition lore, or 3.5. When I say 3rd edition, I basically mean 3rd or 3.5, but primarily 3.5. But there's not a ton of difference in terms, especially this kind of lore stuff. Now, in 5th edition, they made them a CR10, so they did weaken them down a little bit. But basically, in 5th edition, they made them more advanced, more powerful gray Slaads. And they said that they come from gray Slaads who eat an entire corpse of a dead death Slaad, which I think is an odd change in the origin story, and it takes some of the mystery out. I just like it, like, we don't know how these things came. But it's also reemphasizes some of the, what I find is some of the boring mechanics in 5th edition monster design, where they're basically like, oh, this monster does a claw, bite. Oh, this one does claw, bite. Well, kind of like that, you know, the blue Slaads are just basically a stronger mechanical version of the red Slaad, and the death Slaad are just basically the stronger mechanical versions of the gray Slaad. So, boring. Now, back to the black Slaad, which is the void Slaad. You see, I might say unequivocally that the black Slaad is the death Slaad in 4th edition, but the challenge with that is in 3rd edition and in 5th edition, well, in 2nd and 1st as well, there's 9 different alignments, right? There's the lawful spectrum, and there's the chaotic spectrum. And when I say lawful spectrum, I mean law, chaos, neutrality, and then the good and evil spectrum, right? So good, neutral, evil. So that gives you 9 different alignments: lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful evil, neutral evil, chaotic evil, lawful neutral, true neutral, and chaotic neutral. And so the Slaads were just chaotic neutral, except for the death Slaads were chaotic evil because they've been infected. Well, in 4th edition, they reduced the number of alignments to 5. So you've got lawful good, good, unaligned, evil, and chaotic evil. So they had to make all this, well, they made all the Slaads chaotic evil. I guess you could make the choice that they were maybe unaligned to make the black Slaad, the void Slaad, make that one chaotic evil. But I think they really want to emphasize the chaotic nature, and I think maybe they thought, like, well, anyway, it's one of the few times I think reducing the alignments from 9 to 5 really hit them, because with the Slaads, I think they really benefit that true chaos, right? And then it's kind of cool because it demarcates the death Slaad as the one that's different, right? This one actually has been subsumed by evil. Well, in 4th edition, guess what? They're all evil, and it's just not quite as interesting to me. Last is the, oh yeah, look at that. This is the red Slaad right here, the red Slaad. And for you 4th editioners, the blood Slaad. Now in this case, I kind of like this 3rd edition red Slaad because it's a little bit darker, more realistic. This one's a little shinier, makes it look a little bit more toy-like to me. So I'm gonna have to give the vote to the red Slaad. So in 3rd edition, they were challenge rating 7, the weakest version of the Slaads, and they would implant eggs in victims. If they struck them, they could implant eggs that could hatch, if untreated, into blue Slaads, or if the victim was an arcane caster, they would transform into green Slaads and eat their way out. either case, blue or green. They would eat the red of the victim, killing them. I think that's a pretty cool idea, you know. And I think about aliens and things ripping out of people. I think it'd be really awesome to have some adventurers, you know, come across a town of people, or maybe just even like, you know, an outpost of people, like, right, and they're all like sort of like having this mysterious illness, and they're all like vomiting and feel terrible. And then, like, maybe in the middle of the night, like, bam, he's like, Slaads like start erupting out of everyone, right, and attacking the party. I think that would be a really cool idea. Okay, so in 5th edition, the Red Blood Slaad also got weakened a little bit. They made him challenge rating 5. And they also gave stats for Slaad tadpoles, which I think is a really cool idea. It goes back to my thing about the Slaads busting out. So instead of just coming out as full-form Slaads, there were these tadpoles. I think the tadpole idea actually came from 4th edition because they also had stats for Slaad tadpoles in 4th edition, and I didn't see those tadpole stats in any previous editions. Now in 4th edition, they kind of did an odd thing where they kind of reversed it. They made these red Slaads or blood Slaads. They made them a level 15, which is kind of the equivalent of a challenge rating 10. So that would be like the 3rd edition would be like the gray Slaad, right? So I don't know why they decided to do that and mix up the hierarchy of the different Slaads, but I think it's kind of necessary and kind of pointless. But anyway, they did that. And all Slaads in 4th edition say, except for the black Slaads, can infect people with a tadpole, which is kind of like they modeled it as a disease. That's kind of cool. And when the tadpole hatches from someone, it can actually turn into any different kind of a Slaad. So they sort of like made it even a bit more chaotic. So in that sense, I think it's kind of a good thing. So they did change the mythology a little bit, but made it a little more interesting. Oh, and then also there is a green Slaad, or in 4th edition, the Cursed Slaad. However, my green Slaad mini lives in case 3 on shelf 6. So we're only on case 1, shelf 5. So that's like a few episodes away, but probably we'll talk about the green Slaad then. So I'll briefly touch on it. In 3rd edition, it was a challenge rating 9. In 5th edition, a challenge rating 8. And in 4th edition, it was a level 18, so the equivalent of a challenge rating 12. And as I mentioned before, also called a Cursed Slaad. And in case you were wondering, I do have the 5th edition monster manual here, and I have the Slaad pages here. So you can see there in the top, there you've got your red Slaad, and then you've got your blue Slaad, then you've got your green Slaad, and your gray Slaad. And then on a couple pages over, you've got your Death Slaad. And if you look at that Death Slaad, come on. Black Slaad, Death Slaad, those look pretty similar to me, right? Okay, come on, folks. The jig is up. We know the Black Slaad is the Death Slaad. We don't all need to have their chromatic entry. Come on, guys. Come on, come on. I love 4th edition. An awesome game. Speaking of it, here it is. Monster Manual and the Slaads depicted in the Monster Manual. And there they are. Green, red, Curse, Blood, Talon Blue, Gray, Rift. And then you've got your black or Void Slaad, which I think is the Death Slaad. And what's interesting, it brings up a point, you know, here's this Death Slaad in 3rd edition, right? Much more like human, kind of with his great sword. And then you've got this guy who just looks more like a monster. I kind of favor the Death Slaad being a little more humanoid and less monstrous, because to me it makes it even more fearsome. But this guy just looks like, but I will give it up for this guy having that kind of clear plastic use of miniature stuff. So that's kind of a cool thing. Then I will say they got a little crazy in 4th edition with the Slaads. They introduced, here in the Monster Manual 3, they introduced the Golden Slaad, which is 20th level, and also the Putrid Slaad, which is basically an undead Slaad at 19th level. So there's your Golden Slaad, which kind of could just dissolve into a puddle of goo when it got sufficiently damaged. And there's your Putrid Slaad, which could not reproduce with the Chaos phase. And then just for the heck of it, I've got the plane below, right? This is the elemental chaos, kind of where the Slaads in 4th edition kind of come from. Basically, I'd say, you know, kind of like the limbo. And they added quite a few more versions. I don't think they really have any pictures. Well, they kind of do. Yeah, they've got some pictures of some of these other Slaads, which are basically just takes on, well, for the most part, the blue, the green, the red, and then they did have this white Slaad. But yeah, they got the Chaos Forge Swarm, which is basically clumps of oversized Slaad embryos. They've got the green Slaad Magak, the blue Slaad Digester, the gray Slaad Havoc, and the red Slaad Juggernaut, which are just basically different versions of the existing Slaads. I guess they just needed to add a few more things. And then they add the white or Chronos Slaad. And for my money, I'm like, yeah, I guess. But at a certain point, it's just like overkill, right? Like, how many different kinds of Slaads do you actually need? Now, I will point out, in Revenge of the Giants, this is a 4th edition adventure I ran for characters level, it says 12 to 17 here, but I think it might have been like going up to 18, actually. Inside the book, it might have said something different. But anyway, the point is, I remember, I think it was Living Forgotten Realms, one of the organized play adventures in 4th edition that I remembered like having this big, really cool thing with Slaads, and I thought it was in here, so I went to look, and there was just like one battle in here where they're trying to repair this ship for a djinn, or kind of a genie type character, and they get attacked by Slaads, by some gray Slaads, red Slaads, and then some Slaad spawns, which I kind of think of like Slaad spawns, you know, it would be better to me not to be independently attacking, but more like burst out of people. But anyway, I thought that was Chaos again. Can you believe it? Here goes my phone. Whoa, hey, Chaos, the phone again ringing. Well, I had to deal with that. Okay, so basically, what do you think about alignment, right? The whole change between 9 alignments to 5. And I think the big thing about alignments is in earlier editions, like particularly like 1st, 2nd edition, like paladins could only be lawful good, monks had to be lawful, and there were certain things like protection from evil, which actually could hedge off like evil aligned creatures. And then I think in 3rd edition, they kind of kept that same thing too. In 4th edition, they toned down their alignments, reduced them to only 5. There was less mechanical, if any, elements towards the alignments. Now in 5th edition, they brought back the typical or the traditional 9 alignment types, but much less mechanics tied to them, if much of any, right? Even like protection from evil actually protects from like outsiders and demons and devils and fairies and stuff. Doesn't actually protect, or undead, but doesn't actually protect from like an evil human, right? And paladins, like for example, can be any alignment. So I think it's a good move. I think it's better not to have. I think alignments, you know, if some people don't even like alignments, and some game systems don't even add alignments because it's just like let the character play themselves the way they want. And some people look at it as just sort of an artifact, right? Well, D&D's always had the alignments. We have to keep it. Well, it doesn't really add much to the game. So since no one guessed the name of week 2's miniature, I'm ending that contest and revealing it. Here is a look again. This is called an Asura. You can see got the fiery wings, the fiery sword, blue skin female with some kind of bird-like talon-like feet, right? I just really like this miniature. And 3rd edition D&D was a messenger and herald of the gods. Basically, I would say had a good angel that didn't like the angels and had a bent for putting down the beatdown. Now, for this week's miniature, I'm showing off something that when I originally looked for today's show, I thought this was actually one of the Slaads, but it is not, even though there is definitely kind of a resemblance. But you can see this thing's got like 6 eyeballs, right? I don't know if you can really see that there. There's 3 on that side and 3 on this. And it's kind of gray colored, which is a big hint, right? Anyway, and then in this case, I can even show you the bottom because I've got a magnet on it, right? All right, so that's your miniature. I got the box full of minis that I can send to you. But you only have 2 weeks to guess it before I end the contest. So thank you for watching another episode of What's Your Geek. Please subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and what do you think about having alignment in games? Do you think mechanics should be tied strongly to alignments? Do you think it should be more of a story element? Do you think alignments should be out of games altogether? Until next time, oh, the chaos. Roll the crit.